Hello, fellow film chewers. We're back again to discuss the 1979 Best Picture winner, Kramer versus Kramer. We are 20 movies in on the Oscars
Ooh.
project as of this recording. We'll be heading into the 1980s next time. So the Kramer versus Kramer, it was directed by Stanley R. Jaff. I'm probably butchering his name. The runners up that year were All That Jazz, Apocalypse Now, Breaking Away, and Norma Ray. And as usual, I'm here with Chris and Jared. How are you guys doing?
Very well. Very well. Yeah. Excited to talk about Kramer versus Kramer. First time watch for me. Same for everybody else.
You too.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was really surprised. Well, first, Dustin Hoffman, I know we'll get into Rain Man in the 80s, but I was impressed with his performance.
Me too.
It kind of hurts my heart to see him do all the stupid rom-coms and things later in the 2010s, but
well, he was very much the after Midnight Cowboy. He became the very in vogue actor, I think, of the 70s, and sort of started. I don't want to say ruined, but Tootsie definitely seemed to move him into a different space.
You think Tootsie was? You think Tootsie was that much of a? Because Tootsie came after this.
It did.
Right?
It did.
So, yeah. You think that moved him into a different space from what? Just from regular.
He was a very serious actor. Yeah, he was well known method. He was a method actor. You know, he was one of those people that really embodied, like Midnight Cowboy. It was very much about embodying that character and that retro character that he was. Really, that kind of stuff. And then, I mean, Tootsie's so good. It's no reflection on Tootsie. In fact, it's probably of how good Tootsie was that people have seen how funny and sort of playful he could be as well. And there's a certain element to this. But the bit I really like about his performance in this, it doesn't have the hallmarks of the over-the-top Dustin Hoffman. You know, he's kind of an understated character a lot of the ways through it. And the bits where he would say elevate his performance or shows the real strong emotion really stand out and really sharpen it because of it, like where he smashes the glass against the wall. They really stand out because of that, but he's not over the top for an awful lot of it. So I really like this performance as well. Yeah, you really go along for the ride with him.
Yeah, I thought he showed some aspects of comedic chops in Midnight Cowboy.
I suppose that's
some
true.
of the stuff that his character did. But yeah, he's this one was definitely more dramatic, and he showed like you said, it showed some real. I was impressed with his array of emotion towards the child. I thought it was very wide ranging. I thought it was very well encompassed of what a father could go through in that situation, and I really felt he did a lot with that role towards his son.
Also, I thought it was interesting that we've been watching the Best Pictures, there's a lot of overlap with actors. We see the same actors. We've seen the same ones a few times over, and I feel like in more recent times, the last 10, 20 years, that happens a lot less than it did in this time period.
That's an interesting thing to think about. I just feel like ever since everybody talked about Leonardo DiCaprio not winning an Oscar, he's nominated every bloody year. but he could be the, and Meryl Streep was nominated sort of for many years as well. But outside of those two, that there is definitely a more diverse spread. I think. Maybe it speaks more to the styles of films that are getting released now, or the fact that the movies that get nominated now aren't the big, what do you call the big box office hits, if you know what I mean. It is these kind of more character study kind of films that get nominated now, whereas back then, The Godfather was an enormous movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, enormous movie, Sting, these were all enormous box office hits back in these days, so you needed bankable stars that went with it at that time, but...
Yeah.
Definitely could be onto something.
We did have Oppenheimer. We did have Oppenheimer.
That's true.
That had all the hallmarks of this type of era.
It did. Yeah, it did. Absolutely.
So Well, I was surprised because I expected a courtroom drama. That's kind of what I had in my mind going into this one, and it was really only the last half an hour or so that we get the courtroom drama, but we get all the build up to that drama. So it was much more. I feel like it was much more meaningful than just a standard hour and a half of courtroom and half an hour of kind of learning about them and their lives. So I thought that was a nice touch on it, not focusing so much on that on the legal side.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Because that's kind of what you picture when you see some of the stills for this movie, or some of the images that come out of this movie. You kind of picture it as being two people screaming at each other in court or something like that. And I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't that. that there was actually more of an exploration of a relationship between a father and a son, who's a father who was quite a little bit out of the picture to start with because of the demands of his job. And all of a sudden he is the picture, and he's the focus, and that rebuilding of a relationship that may or may not should have been there in the first place is now the focus of that. And I like all the little touches they put in to show how that relationship developed and how it matured over time, from initial awkwardness to a real bond by the end.
Yeah. I think it kind of, that kind of whole point leads on to what my big takeaway from the film, which is essentially that in 1979, I think the whole world would have viewed this picture very, very differently, and what they were taking from it than what they will take from it now. It certainly feels to me, and I can't describe it because obviously I wasn't there in the time, and I didn't know what social film was almost like, or what I expected it to be, was this kind of, you're supposed to choose sides based on your sexuality of whoever watches the movie. If you know what I mean, females will side with the mother, males will side with the male. That's what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be these two screaming at each other as a custody battle. I definitely thought that. But the whole thing's quite understated in how it shows this man who's engaged with his career, going out and doing the typical providing one, looks after his son. The change in him, rather than necessarily this kind of look at, oh my God, look, a man can look after a kid. You know, which I almost certainly think that's what it was sort of read like at the time, and I think it speaks to the film's strengths, that it can be read in those kind of multiple levels. It has a bit more nuance than that, and that we can get something else out of it. And the things that stand out to me as really like weird and problematic are not the things that I think probably stood out back then. Definitely.
One of the things that struck me is that in the beginning he's in his boss's office. They're kind of just shooting the shit. And later in the film, as he is not able to stay after work and have a drink, or not able to go out, he's kind of looked down upon as, well, you're not part of the team because you have to go to your kid. And later he's talking about his son and how, the moments they have together. And it kind of felt like that was a nice touch of he's alienating himself from these expectations of him to take care of his kid. And he is being punished for it because of what the expectations were in his workplace.
Yeah, he definitely he was definitely in that madman type setting at his workplace.
Very, very nicely put.
Where that's the focus of your life right there, and you're there to provide for your family, but that's where you're supposed to be, and everything else is of lesser importance to that ambition, to that focus on a career. And I think that's a very interesting statement for 1979, because it contrasts wonderfully with the statement that a woman actually needs to find herself. That's what what Meryl Streep's character was doing. She needed to find herself. She didn't know who she was, and she was thrust into the madman role of being the mom at home, taking care of the kid, and you're supposed to just manage that. And obviously, her character was not well suited for that at the time. and it got to her. She tried it for 7 years or whatever, and that concept of going out to find yourself, just dropping everything, was probably a little more shocking in 1979 than it would be today.
Yeah, did either of you think that it was almost a statement? They never come out and talk about it. Maybe it's just me, but I kind of got the impression that she was suffering from postpartum depression, and that's a major problem for a lot of women. Yeah. But I wish they would have been a little bit more forward if that's what they were kind of hinting at. I wish they would have mentioned it, but I'm not sure if it was really a thing at the time. But that's kind of the impression I got, is that she was suffering from depression, and she went and got help and felt better after she had a chance to take a breath and get away.
And went into therapy and took those steps to look after herself and realize some things about her own life. Yeah, mm-hmm. I actually think not labeling it kind of asked some questions of the audience, kind of looking at it, basically going, was it okay for her to walk out and leave them? Was it okay for her to take that time out and do that for herself, for her own well-being? I do like that, because in much the same way she went away to find herself, he finds himself, but in a totally different way. Like, he's committed, his work basically has no interest at home, and finds and rebalances himself. And I think that ultimately culminates in that big scene where he goes and goes, I need employment. Money's not important here. That is not a factor here at all. I need employment. This is what is important to me. And he wasn't doing it for, I'll work for a week so that I can stay unemployed. He was saying, this is me redressing what's important in my life, which makes the end scenes where he's faced with the prospect of losing the son difficult, because again, he's not sitting thinking, woe is me, I give up my career for this. He's saying, woe is me, I'm going to lose this relationship with my son. And that scene where he's talking about going to live with the mum, I actually think's very nice, with him just making peace with the fact that your mum loves you, I love you, things are going to be fine. You know, I think that's a lovely scene, actually.
Yeah, I wonder if they were trying to show, because divorce was so looked down upon, during these times, but it was becoming more common, and it was happening more. It was after the, the rise of feminism and the sexual revolution and all that. Divorce was definitely on the rise, and I wonder if they were trying to say, it's okay if this happens. You can get by this. You can move on from this, and you can still have a happy life. Because it may have been, it was probably a scary thing for a lot of people during the times, and even for people to even bring up, it was scary. And so, I think at the time this came out, I remember it being I was only a kid, but I remember it being a big deal amongst, the adults talking in the other room. I remember this movie being a big deal. Yeah. And I don't know the particulars of what my parents' generation were thinking, but it definitely had an impact on society. And I think it was just trying to show all sides of what can happen in a divorce, and that it doesn't have to be the end of the world, basically.
We mentioned the bond between him and his son. I thought those the quiet moments of them together were really well done, and kind of feel like a fly on the wall. And also just in the topic of divorce, and I think it also demonstrates that you can go through that process and still have some kind of peaceful resolution. It doesn't have to be a combative thing, because he does have times where he gets upset, like when she comes back and she wants her son back. And later on in the film, even after the custody is resolved and she's granted custody, he still is respectful to her. He just doesn't. He asks if she's okay. He's considerate of her, and they're both, for the most part, respectful to each other after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I look at the whole because the divorce scene in the court case is a lot shorter than I imagined, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at the fact that the real only animosity is during that period, if that makes sense, when they are fighting with each other and basically telling all of the worst aspects of each other, but neither of them really believes that of the other person. Do you know what I mean? It's part of the show and the pantomime of the court case. And again, I like how his lawyer isn't painted out to be a bad person. He's painted out to be a sympathetic person. He's truthful the whole time. He does his job. He loses. He's sad about it. You know that nobody's necessarily a villain, but it is a system that engenders a lot of hurt and all those things coming out, especially when there's children involved. But the fact that they could come through that in the far end and actually come to a sort of a relationship which they considered was the best for the child at the end, and where they are. You know, it wasn't about winning. It wasn't about ownership. It wasn't about taking something away from that marriage as a prize. It was what would be the best for this child right now, and kind of doing that. And I thought that was, again, very powerful at the end when she didn't want to go up and see him. He calls Michael down, and then he lets her go up by herself and tell him and explain the situation. I thought that, you know, letting them both have their individual space with the child, to get him to ask questions without the impression or the influence of the other. Because they did the same thing in the courtroom. I can't remember exactly what line it was when she's asked a question, and he was mouthing at her basically, you don't have to say what they wanted to say. Yeah, you know, he's going, no, you don't. Look, that's not what's happening here. Which again was very counter to what I thought the film was going to be.
Yeah. I think I was kind of probably expecting something like War of the Roses with Michael Douglas. I was kind of expecting something like that, but it was nothing like that at all. And you're right, that the last scene was very touching when he had her go up and say goodbye. And the I think that really showed that the reality of these situations is kind of at odds with the laws and society norms. You know, you have that side of it, and you have the reality of what people are really feeling, and that they're not always on the same page. And I think that's kind of the theme of the movie, is that the reality of people's situations isn't always on the same page of what society expects of us. It's, you know, with the jobs, with the homemaking, with the idea that the mother always gets custody, and all these societal norms and laws that are in place. But but people are people, and the reality of their situations always going to take front and center over all this stuff.
Yeah, I found it interesting. It was I was looking at reviews of this afterwards, and somebody had made the point in one of the reviews that the circumstances in this movie are sort of like some of the most normal difficulties, whether they end in divorce or not, but parents fight, they fall out, there are issues that come up, you know, somebody feels ignored. They're the most normal day-to-day things that people experience all throughout, you know, adult life and whatever. And yet there are so few movies about it. Like, the ones that there are, Marriage Story, Squid and the Whale, there aren't that many about that subject. Okay, it's not sexual, but people can identify with it, and when those movies come out, they usually reach an audience. Whereas we see movies about all sorts of other random stuff that are totally beyond the realms of possibility, and you know, they're not representative of real life. And I think that there's something very true about that as a curiosity in terms of what makes a good movie, or what you should make a movie about, because this movie says a lot in what it does and how it treats its characters sympathetically on all sides.
I think that's about escapism, that movies like this aren't made more often because of that reason, because people want to escape their problems and not. I kind of feel like it's cathartic in a way to see people like Midnight Cowboy or Kramer versus Kramer, or I'm sure there's been other kind of, you know, more grounded stories that we've watched in the series, but I kind of feel like it's almost reassuring in a way that you're not alone, that, you know, people have gone through this and they'll come out the other side. And so I guess I can see both sides of it, but yeah, I wish there were more kind of human, everyday stories like this.
Like, I often think that art is a way to engender conversation. Like, whether it's a painting, whether it's a movie, whether it's a song, it's supposed to open yourself up to the idea of seeing something from another's perspective, or seeing your own life through another lens, that kind of stuff. And so whether it's about family dramas or otherwise, just filmmaking in general has an important place in terms of doing that. And I think we've probably seen so far through some of the films that we've been talking about that they do try and do that. Some of them, certainly In the Heat of the Night, definitely tries to do that and succeeds. Patton tries to do it and fails. You know, but there is an attempt, I think, in a lot of like very successful movies, and especially as we start to go through, I think, the 80s and 90s, you'll see this and 2000s and more. You'll see this more like very themes of the day are coming out a lot in the films that win at that stage. You know, environmental concerns, you know, looking after nature and wildlife, all of that kind of stuff. They're all kind of within the scheme of what is successful in a year-to-year basis of the movies.
Yeah, and it's it was interesting that the beginning of this movie, it starts with this upbeat music, but it's very complex guitar playing that's going on. It's very virtuosic, and I think that is an excellent contrast to the first shot we get, where we get this silent close-up face shot of Meryl Streep's character. Mm-hmm. You see the sadness, you see the thoughtfulness, you see that she's obviously thinking about something that she doesn't want to think about, and then you get this immediate confirmation of her love for her son right away. Like, she tells him right away, like she's telling that right away, you know. And so that contrast of that upbeat music to start with, and this complex orchestration of the guitar, compared to this soft personal moment, you know, with this confirmation of love, it shows you once again it shows you the difference between expectations and reality, and it just I thought it was beautifully done, that whole transition, and I love how the right after that, soon after that, after she leaves him, the neighbor points out to him that to Dustin Hoffman's character that, oh, she messed up one of the 5 best days of your life, but what about her life, you know? And so there's a lot of little subtle stuff like that was going on, and just the stages of denial that he goes through. First he goes through denial, and then he goes through anger, and he goes through those stages as the time goes on, and then he gets acceptance finally, you know, and he moves on and starts planning his life out with his son, you know. And so it was really interesting how they went through that whole thing, and pretty clever, I thought.
Yeah, one of my favorite aspects, actually, now that you bring it up, is the relationship between him and his neighbor, and the evolving relationship of that. How nice it was to see a purely platonic relationship between a male and a female who were broken up, and you know, their relationship had broken up. Like just about every other situation that happens in TV or movies, there is a romantic subplot that goes on between that. But she becomes an advocate for him, and even though, like, the day with son Billy falls off the climbing frame, she went to deal with it and didn't deal with it. You know, she feels responsibility. That scene of him running through carrying the child to the hospital is very effective as well, because there's a franticness, there's a lot communicated in that scene about what's going on, and like, you're thinking at the time, God, this is going to be held against him, and it was, but not to the level that maybe you thought at the time. But that relationship between those two, just sitting and him genuinely asking about her welfare and about her relationship with her ex-husband and all of that kind of stuff, even sitting with his arm around her in a totally non-romantic way, was, again, just showed a maturity to the filmmaking in this that could have went totally the other way and made it too melodramatic or too something that it just hit a very nice tone.
Yeah, I like that. I like that relationship as well. I did think that the kid getting hurt was a little obvious and hit you over the head. Like it's like, yeah, when's this kid gonna get hurt? Anytime now, you know.
And his car, etc. Yeah.
And he's gonna get blamed, and that part was a little obvious, but it was like you said, it was still well done when he's running through the city and stuff like that. And the neighbors' involvement was well done too. But you just knew it was gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm glad him and the neighbor didn't develop any kind of relationship, and it was more of a bonding, friendship, support kind of relationship, and that would have been a little too easy. It would have been a little too predictable. So I'm glad it was just platonic.
Yeah.
He does ask her to take care of his son if something happens to him, and I liked her response, like, oh, okay, I don't know.
Yeah. Again, very realistic because I mean he really didn't have anybody else. You know, that was the thing about it. He was literally the single father with nobody else. He had devoted his life to his work, and his friendships, etc., were tied up in his work to a certain degree. And then when he lost that, he wasn't worried about those friendships. He was worried about the income and the status that it would give him, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, and he went against the grain with everybody. Like everybody's giving him advice. Oh, go send the kid off to live with relatives somewhere, you know. But he stuck to his guns, and you really had to admire the character for that. Some of his choices, and it was interesting. This is something else I didn't expect from the movie, was to basically have it from his point of view. Just about almost through the whole thing. You really didn't get Meryl Streep's point of view. You get her from the outside looking in, which is beautifully portrayed when she's looking through the window. That's her character, the outside looking in. And so I love that symbolism. But I didn't expect that from the movie. I didn't expect it to be pretty much from all his point of view. And so you don't really, like Steve said earlier, you don't really get much of her story or her situation or what she's thinking and stuff like that. She tries to explain it to him and stuff, but that's still his point of view, him getting the explanation, you know? Yeah. And so you're still getting it from, all from him in a way. And so I found that interesting. I wonder if the filmmakers had thought of maybe doing the other way, or if they did film stuff from her point of view and they just decided to cut it out or whatever. I don't know what the case was, but I found that decision to be fascinating.
Yeah. I think what makes the movie effective is that even though we do get his perspective pretty much the entire movie, and she, in the beginning, it can almost be viewed as a villain to just walk out and leave them both. By the end of the film, even though we get his perspective the majority of the time, your heart still breaks for her, and you still are conflicted at times of who are you rooting for, because you can feel her regret and her plight and her desire to be a part of her son's life. But he also has, a stake in it, and we've gone on the journey with both of them. So it's hard because you still are conflicted at times with who you're rooting for, or if you're rooting for them to reconcile, or what the outcome would be.
And as you said, Jared, that introducing her back into the film through the coffee shop window, almost like, there's so much communicated with just her stare. She can't bring herself to go near him. There'd be an awful lot of guilt there. There'd be an awful lot of hurt there. It doesn't need to be spelt out. It just, you can see it in the fact that she can't cross that pane of the window and outside the coffee shop, and seeing that. It's so beautifully done. And they don't paint Michael as being as angel either. They show him very warts and all, especially at the start. They show the fact that he was probably a terrible husband and a terrible father. You know, he was non-present at all times. They definitely do paint that, but they do basically pass the message along that a happier life is one that is made up of those relationships and changing those priorities, because he definitely is a more calm and reassured and confident person just in himself by the end of the movie, to basically not feel like he has to fight for it and just kind of, you know, just explain life to his son, just in all the weird and wonderful ways that fathers sometimes do. Let's get ice cream, you know.
Yeah, and you do. It's weird how you she's, like you said, she's set up to be the villain, kind of, so to speak, by leaving, even though we see all his faults in the beginning. That's something that we're kind of just hardwired to think. You don't just leave a kid, you know.
Yeah.
But and then she comes back and demands custody, and so you're immediately set up to think she's a villain again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why does she deserve custody? We've just been watching this guy break himself trying to make things work and give a life to this kid and make him happy and keep the kid safe and what have you. And but we had to remind ourselves that it is his point of view the whole time. So we don't really know what she's been through that whole time. And she's wanting custody at this point because she thinks she's ready, you know, and and obviously she missed him, and so she's ready to be that mother again. And the real point of true growth for her character was when it finally dawns on her what happened while she was gone.
Yeah.
And she makes that decision at the end, in spite of what went on in the court. And so I think it was interesting to see her grow through his eyes, which is hard to pull off in a story, I think. And I think that was done well.
Yeah.
And you definitely have sympathy for the fact that she left what was a bad husband, bad father, and she didn't see his growth at all. So when she's coming back to ask for custody of the child, she's thinking she's saving the child, and that he thinks it's a prize, you know, is very much so. So again, that realization of her at the end to basically say to yourself, you know, do I really think me taking the child is one in the best interest of the child, but what she wants really, I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. Does she want to go back to a life where she's looking after sole responsibility for the child? And without judgment, again, I think it does a very good job of saying, actually, I don't. You know, I feel like I've still some living and growth and stuff to do. I feel trapped. I might be back in the same place. Whereas on the flip side, he is very much about the boy and reorganizing his life to be there for him. And that, to me, that the kids still got two very good parents. You know, at the end of the day, that they will come and be in and out of their life. They'll not be together, but he'll have the best of both worlds, which I think is ultimately the good part of the story, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Other random thoughts. Okay, so again, male attitudes were the other thing that really came out to me in this. So the scene when he's getting questioned in the stand about, did you miss a deadline for your son? Like, how absolutely bizarre in today's society would that question be? Like, as if he doesn't want to say he missed a deadline because his son was sick or something. Like, that just, it's so ludicrous by today's standards. But it's this admission of him not being masculine or not doing his part, that role in society. That bit stuck out like such like a sore thumb to me of something that just would never happen in modern society.
I also thought his yearly income was living in New York, 29,000 a year.
29,000 a year.
Yeah. Inflation's a bitch, huh?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Wow. That was insane.
Yeah. Today you'd be living in your mother's basement for that much.
Oh, if you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
Couldn't buy a car for that. My God. Yeah. How the world changes. And the fact that his ex-boss, he's the biggest asset in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you expected that going in, and just by how, his attitude and how he looked right away, it was definitely written right there. He was a pastiche, really, of all those madman bosses that we've seen in movies over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Good stuff. I enjoyed it, though. I was glad I watched it.
Very much so.
And my wife liked it too, so that was a bonus.
Have a good chat afterwards, Jared.
Yeah, we did. Very good. No, I feel for the people in the movie. I've been through it myself, and so it's all good.
Yeah.
Very relatable.
Interesting movie to round out the 70s as well, don't you think? Given how bombastic some of the films have been in it, and how grandiose and about big things like the Vietnam War and about the mafia and all those things, they end with a family dispute with about 4 characters in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and less than 2 hours.
Yes, that was nice.
Best film of the 70s. There you go.
That was nice. That was nice. It was pretty quick film too. I felt like it was very tight. No fluff. Everything was, overall it was very good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's probably in my top 10. I haven't done my 10 like Jared over here has, the overachiever, but
well, after this discussion, I might have to change it around a little bit.
Oh, dear. I have no idea where to place it. I find it very hard to immediately react to a movie like this as well, because I do think this is like one of these movies that's softer spoken. There's less set pieces, etc. I find it hard to know how I'll feel about it in a month or a year or anything like that. But once the melodramaticness kind of it fades a little bit, what's left?
I think it was a grounded, emotional story that I think is something that you can watch in 1979 and have an impact, and watch now in 2025 and still have an impact. It's something that it's not just in that time. So much like something like Rocky, you can watch Rocky in the 70s, you can watch it now, and you still get the same takeaway from it. So in that sense, I felt like it's pretty timeless.
I can and I do for Rocky. I can watch it any time, and I do watch it very regularly.
There you go.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Kramer versus Kramer?
2 Meryl Streep roles in 2 years where she basically mopes.
It's true. Yeah. I don't think she smiles very often at all.
Yeah. Angela in Deer Hunter, and then in this one. It's funny. She's off screen an awful lot of the film in both cases.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's probably my top 10.
Ooh.
Somewhere between 5 and 10.
So.
Yeah, I have it at 11 right now because I didn't want to. I wanted some time to think about it, but I don't know. It might go to 10.
What's above it, if you don't mind me asking? What's directly above it?
Directly above it is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay.
Which I might switch it with that. I'm not sure.
That's yeah.
We'll
those are an interesting conversation point against each other. I think they're a nice contrast about it. Yeah. I like that quite a bit.
Yeah, well, cool. So next up is Ordinary People.
Yes.
Oh, really?
That'll be up next on the list.
I know nothing about Ordinary People.
Me either.
Now,
It'd
so
be-
now this film
it's Redford.
this film beat out Apocalypse Now.
Oh yes, Kramer vs. Kramer.
Yeah. Now I remember really liking Apocalypse Now, but I'm wondering if my memory's flawed, like it was with the Deer Hunter. So I don't know.
I have a complicated relationship with Apocalypse Now. And as far as a film making feat, I think it's magnificent. It's too long, in my opinion, but I have watched some very long cuts of that movie as well. To me, the best picture this year was easily All That Jazz. Bob Fosse's All That Jazz, incredible. I think The Cage You Fall I like quite a lot. That's basically the Birdcage was remade. That was the original French version. The Cage You Fall, I really like that movie as well. But All That Jazz for me, I still do think it's better than Kramer vs. Kramer, but very different type of movie. So I can see like it's comparing apples against oranges. It's come down to kind of feelings at the time and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we'll see what. I know nothing about Ordinary People other than
Me either.
this. So, yeah.
Beat out Raging Bull though.
Yeah. So it must be good.
And Alpha
Right.
Man. Yeah, Jesus. I mean, some good movies right about there. This is Redford directed, rest in peace. And Donald Sutherland, Shelley Moore, Judd Hirsch, I love as well. So looking forward to that.
Cool.
Okay, so if you're watching along with us, watch Ordinary People, and we'll be discussing that next time. But in the meantime, Chris, where can people find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, which is Chris Moen. You can find me on the podcast Speculations, and you can find me on Patreon.com.
And Jared.
You can find me on the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, and you can find me on Speculations as well as Panel Chewing for Pick of the Week.
Yes. And all those links are in the description, so be sure to click those and give them a look and a listen. So until next time, we will talk to everyone very soon. Thanks for listening, and into the 80s next week.
Yes.